The snippets of song that I'll be sharing with you this morning in the sermon is from Into the Woods. It's called Children Will Listen, and it's by Stephen Sondheim. How is everybody doing with the constant gloom, you know? I mean, is it getting to you? Tomorrow the sun is supposed to come out and it's supposed to actually start to become spring this week. And really, it has been a hard time. And I was very, very down last week. Actually, May 1st was an anniversary for me, but one that I hadn't acknowledged consciously what it was. And I didn't realize I was just really quite depressed. And I thought, what is it? You know, it's not really the weather. And I realized that in my psyche somewhere, I was holding on to this anniversary of officially outliving my father. Because he died at 50 and, you know, approximately 4 months. And at some point along the journey of grieving him and missing him throughout all the chapters of my life, I sort of realized, well, when I turn 50, I'll have outlived him, but not really officially until I'm 50 and 108 years old. Not that I was counting or anything. You know, and I was so embarrassed by this. I was depressed, and I was also ashamed and embarrassed by this irrational, superstitious thing. But I decided to share it with some friends because that's something that we really have to try to trust people when we're suffering, that they won't think we're stupid, but will love us as we are. And so I told some of my friends what was going on. And it was very comforting to have many of them say, yep, you know what, I did the same thing. Or, you know, when I outlived my parent, it was a big milestone. It hurt. It was an important anniversary. So I tell you that, and I felt really supported, and I was able to move on. And I tell you that because it's just a reminder of how powerful that primal force of the parent-child relationship really is. And it also is a reminder that sometimes a community can parent us, and even when our own parents cannot. And you know who I didn't tell that I was going through this? My mom, because she was too close to it. And I just thought, no, I'm not going to lay that on her. When we welcome a child as a congregation through our ritual of child dedication, the congregation promises together to be a special spiritual friend to the child. And what that means actually looks a lot like good parenting. It means that we look out for the little one's well-being. It means that we might sometimes have to say to them, whoa, stop running because you're going to slip or you're going to get hot coffee spilled on you. It means that we care about what they're doing and how well it's going, and that we also care about the local schools and institutions that nurture our children, whether or not they're biologically ours. To welcome a child in community requires that we remain mindful of what little sponges they are and how much influence we actually have on them. Careful the things you say, children will listen. Careful the things you do, children will see and learn. Children may not obey, but children will listen. Children will look to you for which way to turn to learn what to be. If that feels like a huge responsibility to live up to, well, congratulations. By being here, we've all signed on for that responsibility. I love the story that Liz Dunnigan told me. It's how she came to the church when she had her first child, Colin, and she brought him babe in arms, and she says that she said to the church, "Help! I can't do this myself. You have to help me." So let's look at what that help really means. It means sharing our stories. It means listening to children's stories and sharing our own, because we're so old. So we can tell them about olden times, like before we had email and everybody had a computer that they carried around with them in their pocket. Wow, that's amazing to a child. It means that we help create for children a sense of meaning, that we help them learn how to make meaning in their lives through worship, which is a time within which we pause in our busy lives and turn our attention and our hearts to the ultimate and to the divine and to what is really, really our highest value. And that we create with them rituals, which is part of making meaning, the rituals that celebrate life, that honor death. In churches, it's often a church where a child first learns about death or first experiences the death of someone they know and love. We help parents by modeling hospitality to our children. And we do that just so naturally and beautifully through coffee hour. And our youth here are going to be doing coffee hour this summer for our summer services. They did it last year, they loved it, and it's a great way for them to actually learn what it takes to feed community. We help by being a community of adults who can help parents identify gifts and talents in their children. It's so often a church mother or father who tells a parent, "Did you know that your child is really good at such and such?" Let's think about all of our great singers who came up through the church, like Whitney Houston, whose mother was a choir director, and Diana Ross, and Katy Perry, and R&B stars Usher and John Legend. These are famous musicians who started all in church music and singing. And you know that their congregations cheered them on and lifted them up and whooped on them and whooped. We help parents by paying attention to our children's spiritual development, and there's a real intimacy that can get created there between children and other nurturing adults through religious education programming taught by other lay members who are mentors and who can be trusted with that child's big questions and who respect them and who are also trusted many times with that child's secret fears that they don't always share with their parents. This is a really huge pastoral responsibility that we all share and that we agree to honor in the life of the church. You don't know how much impact you can have as a church mother or father or friend. I just think about someone like Louise Gallo, who has taken care of so many children in this church for so long, and still today they come and they're in their 20s and they beeline right to Louise to give her some love. Pastoral care to children can make parents feel exposed and vulnerable. And I won't say that it shouldn't, but one of the chief reasons I believe churches are important is that they can be one of the only places in a family's life where all of them can tell the truth about how painful, difficult, and conflicted family life can get. Sometimes that truth can come out through a child's confidential sharing with another adult, and then that can lead to sharing it with the pastor, and that can lead, and it often does, to therapeutic support for the whole family. So that's part of the network of care that we have here. There have been many times in my ministry where parents have come to me with their child because they're concerned about their child's moral character, and they come for counseling, which is very intense. So the church can be one of the first places where a community recognizes for a child and with a child that we all struggle with what they call in the Jewish tradition the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. There's no messing around when we grapple with that. There's a Yetzer Hara, evil inclination, and there's a Yetzer Tov, the good inclination. So there's no other institution in a child's life that is set up specifically to address moral development. Here we don't shame, we don't set up unreasonable purity expectations. We do not want to set up a system by which anybody has to be a hypocrite and try to be perfect. What we do is we deal honestly and seriously with instincts to harm or to bully or to hurt, to take revenge. These are some of the things that I've worked with children. Above all, the help that Liz Dunnigan asked for comes in the form of adults just being community, doing it and being themselves. I'm a child who grew up in the church, and I learned just as much from the cranky, anti-kid people as I did from the ones who greeted me enthusiastically and remembered my name and cared about me. I remember one time we were standing around the piano. I had to have been like 8 years old at the holiday ornament making party at my UU church. And someone said, I'll never forget this, they said, Vicky has a very nice singing voice. Let's have her do a solo. This was so huge because I didn't know that person knew me. I certainly didn't know she would have known that I loved to sing. It was so amazing. So I sang, I'll Be Home for Christmas. And my knees were trembling the whole time. But everybody was so nice and they were sort of fussing. Oh, good, that was lovely. But one woman interrupted and she said, that's fine, let's sing another one. And she just kind of reached over the piano and turned the music right away. And it seemed really mean to me. I remembered it all those years later, but it was also really interesting because I thought, oh, not all grown-ups want kids around. Okay, all right, note taken. And I knew I hadn't done anything wrong, so I just kind of thought, well, all right, she's cranky. She didn't want me here. This past Friday night, our kids, our youth who participated in the Our Whole Lives curriculum, which is a lifespan sexuality curriculum, they had their celebration of the program, of its completion. And I just think about how cool is that when you learn about sexuality and sexual ethics in your church with adults who aren't your parents. And Amanda, you were an OWL teacher, and Scott, you were an OWL teacher. Nikki, were you too? No, okay, so 2 of them are here. Anybody else taught OWL who's here today? An amazing, amazing commitment. And in a couple weeks, we'll be hearing from our youth group in the service who meet weekly with Megan and Kate, and this year they're doing an anti-racism focus called Be the Change. There's lots going on. To come to any community with a child's hand in yours or in your arms is a great act of faith. It has to be said that in some churches that faith has been terribly violated, where children have been abused and exploited. The pain and sadness that comes from this violation lasts a very long time and goes so deep precisely because the church should be the safest place for children, a home for their spirit, populated by people who live out and represent God's inextinguishable love and who understand and protect a child's inalienable right to develop in shalom or wholeness. So that's a really, really deep commitment to be a safe congregation. And we're working on policy to create that right now. I want you to know Karen is working on that with Mary Sparopoulos of the religious education, or the faith development ministry team. Now, I heard this morning that 54% of all Massachusetts households are single-parent households. I think we can all agree that it's demanding enough for 2 people to parent a child, and that doing it solo is a formidable task. So we have to always stand with our doors open and our ears open, and an understanding that when we try to keep some space in our own schedules, we try to keep that open for the unexpected, that we do that, and we should do that, not only because our own children might need some breathing room from their heavily scheduled lives, but because someone else's family may need us to have some capacity to be there for them. That's one of the commitments we make when we become part of this community, to the spiritual practice of keeping each other on our radar of care and concern. Careful the wish you make. Wishes are children. Careful the path they take. Wishes come true, not free. Careful the tale you tell. That is the spell. Children will listen. We are all born not as human beings having a spiritual experience, but as spiritual beings having a human experience. Our efforts to live out the words of our covenant in community and to meet the obligations of our beloved free faith are not just for ourselves and not just for today, but they are for those who are coming right behind us, who are brought in hand or held in arms. What a blessed vulnerability there is for those who arrive and for those who stay, to know that when children listen, we are the ones whose voices they hear. God help us to be worthy tellers of tales and weavers of spells for our children. And as they are listening to us, let us also listen to them in love and with gratitude. Amen.